Hello, welcome to Fly Nubian Money, where we help you master your mindset and maximize your money. Today, we're going to dive into a very important conversation that touches on both politics and representation in the Black community. So, last week, the Democrat Party hosted a Black Excellence Brunch at the White House. It was a beautiful moment of celebration, but with all the love and praise, we have to ask, was there substance behind it? We were demanding that we are need as a community, or were we just happy to be invited to the party? Are we leveraging our power as Black women, or are we just being seen without being heard? But before we dive into it, let us introduce our queens for today, honey. We have Madame President over here. We also have Erica Lewis, author of Faith in Transition. We have myself, Athena Gardner, CPA of We Wealth Women. And we may have our other queen, Moya. She is a tax professional. So, ladies, I want us to roll the footage. We have this video of this Black Excellence Brunch, and then we'll discuss.
In many ways, it's an uphill battle for Democrats in this respect. Republicans only need a low turnout from Black voters in order to win elections as of the last really 50 some odd years. And so part of what the Democrats are facing is we have this incredibly loyal base, a block of voters for whom no other demographic within the United States functions this way. And yet, because they have been so loyal, and because they vote as a bloc in overwhelming numbers for the Democratic Party and have done so since really 1964, we begin to see that Democrats are taking Black voters for granted or treat it in very superficial ways. Black voters have expressed over the years both anger, right, disenchantment, disillusionment with the feeling that they aren't being appreciated in the way that the Republican Party appreciates its white base. So it is a question of loyalty, but it's also a question of what have you done for us lately?
And I think that's the question we all need to answer. What have you done for us lately, Democrats? So, Madam President, I want to start with you first. What were your first initial thoughts when you learned about the Black Excellence Brunch at the White House?
Well, the first thing is, why wasn't I invited? Because I am Black Excellence. That's just number one. And then number two, what happens after you stop dancing, after you do the electric slide, after you cut the music off? What's going on? And that's the conversation people really do not want to have. We keep on. I realize that, and this, I know the saying my grandmother and them used to say, why, I think they used to say this all the time in reference to men, which is, why buy the cow when you could just get the milk? So that's the thing that's happening with the Black vote, is that we know that all we had to do is give them a little party. All we had to do is give them a little brunch. Well, what about eating for the next 50 years? That's the problem. I want the kids to eat for a lifetime. I'm tired of having the crumbs of the matter. And so for me personally, I also want to highlight, and I'm going to pass the mic, but I want to highlight that this idea of Black excellence and the alignment to whiteness has to end. Every time we talk about Black excellence, it's always, this person is so achieved, this Black excellence, because, you know, he or she has won a gold medal, or he or she has, you know, platinum sales. And I just want to say, they never say, hey, I'm going to have a dinner for all the men and women who were wrongfully incarcerated, and we found out that they were in the country did not do them well. I want to bring them to the White House so they can have a brunch. They never say, oh, my sisters who was wrongfully terminated and have corporate trauma, we're going to invite them to the White House because of the wrongdoing of this country. But you have to perform. The performative is, you are excellent. You're always excellent when you have no ridicule to the President of the United States. You're excellent when you can just have a good time. You're excellent. And it's time out for that.
I agree. I thought you were just preaching a word just now. I had to pull out my tambourine. So, Erica, I want to get your thoughts about it. Do you agree with Madame President? Are we just a people, as a community? We just show up for the show, but don't really ask for tangibles, right? Is it the waffles and the chicken enough for us?
Listen, I am Madam President. I want you running for president because this is the energy I'm talking about. Where you been all year long? I've been looking for you. That's what I'm talking about. We are only considered excellent when we overlook how we're mistreated. We're only considered excellent when we sit by and let people walk all over us and wipe their feet on us like we're the rug at our grandmother's front door. My grandmother always said to me, you don't have to dance on every set. That means you don't have to go where everybody else is going. You don't have to do what everybody else is doing. Sometimes you need to sit on the sideline and watch. And that is the problem with us. We want to dance on every set. We want to be there. We got to be there. Yeah. Everybody going to be there. We want to show up for optics. We want to show up for chicken. We want to show up for the brown liquor. We want to show up for the Kool-Aid. But see, the thing is we show up for the party, but then when we're looking for something, nobody can show up for us because when we showed up, we didn't demand anything other than the tangibles of what was there. It's the non-tangible things that we're not asking for. We're asking for results in our community. But see, this is what happens when and I'm going there today. I'm going there. See, this is what happens when we get on a Zoom, and we can raise $4, $5, $6, $7, $8, $9 million for a party, for a Democratic party or Republican party, who's ever party, when we got a community party that needs to be risen up and taken care of and financed and funded. See, this is what happens. So we put ourselves in a position to be shut down because we're not doing what we're supposed to do for our own communities. So we set ourselves up ultimately for the downfall.
Listen, I was through the roof with the show up for chicken. I almost fell out of my chair. I almost fell out in my chair.
And chicken wings, not chicken breast, chicken wings.
The wings. Oh,
Lord. And listen, I love a wing. I love a wing.
You love a good lemon pepper, Erica. All right, Moya, does Erica have a point in that Black people only show up for chicken? And can we judge the Democratic Party harshly for this? Because I was told Trump was passing out chicken at Popeyes. So, I mean...
Yeah, and that pissed me off too. I'm going to come back to that.
Yeah, so Moya, I want to hear your thoughts. Can we really go in hard on the Democratic Party during this election year for having that Black Excellence Brunch when Trump was passing out, chicken at Popeyes?
Well, Athena, I'm definitely glad that you brought that up. My question when I always hear this in terms of is what is the policy that we're looking for? Like, what is the policy? Because when we bring up policy issues, then it seems like it's not enough. Like when we talk about how much they've given for HBCUs, that's not enough. When we want to talk about real issues in terms of what's happening in Georgia right now. One, not only with the abortion bans, but two, just access to medical care, especially for a majority of women of color, not even mentioning how they treat us, regardless of amount of money that you have when you go into the facilities. So what are we really talking about when we have somebody on the other side that's not even addressing these issues? So what is Black excellence? Because many times when we talk about Blackness, we as Black people, especially younger kids, have to have a frame of what's possible. Otherwise, they're going to be stuck in the frame of what they say is possible. Because if you go into those southern states, they're banning books on African American history. They're not allowing them to get a strong understanding of who they are. So at what point and where can they look to see that I can achieve and excel more? And the White House has a platform to showcase excellence of all people, regardless if they sang or danced or entertained. So what are we looking for? I'm just curious.
Listen, that is a question we're going to ask after we reset. If you are just joining us, this is Fly Nubian Money, where we help you to master your mindset and maximize your income. All right. But we want to make sure that you always stay tuned in and plugged in with us. So to be sure that you do not miss when we go live, honey, which is Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern time, text the word Queens, that is QUEENS, to 87948. Also, if you want to listen to us on the go, you can always listen to us on Spotify. So always stay tuned in and connected with us. All right. So Moya brought something to the table, which is, what are we asking for? What is that we want? What is a Black agenda that we should have brought to the table at this excellence brunch. Madam President, I want to pivot to you. What do you think would have been some great agenda topics for us to actually bring up? Oh, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now? I've been thinking about this for some time now. So a lot of times it says, well, we can't really pay Black people the debt that we owe them. It's so massive. They said the numbers just so challenging. So I said, well, there's all types of ways we could, do no taxes for African Americans. That means that we don't pay taxes. We don't pay taxes in this country. And that can be a great benefit to people because our tax income goes to everything besides coming back to us. So that's a way for people to have a little bit more, no matter what tax bracket you fall into, you can have more of what you earn. Also, can we just talk about free education? The Native Americans were able to, rightfully so, should I say, the Native Americans were able to get land, get control of casinos. They were able to have property that was theirs and managed by them. And we should have the same. Even as a Black person, whatever you want to do in this country, you still have to go through pretty much a white process. You're a Black person, you want to buy a house, you want to, you got to go through the banking process. You got to go through the credit score process. We are integrated in every system in this country, while also the system has a racist embedment associated with it. So it doesn't matter what system we are in, we are 100% integrated into a system that was never originally for us. As you talk about what we want, Tulsa, they never rebuilt Black Wall Street, burned it down to the ground, and did not provide any governmental funding to build it back up. So they can start there as well. And I just would like to highlight in Tulsa, we had our own hotel, we had our own plane, we had our own postal service. So imagine if we would have had Tulsa for the hundreds years that it was burned down. I mean, the level of progression could be unimaginable.
I agree. And I was actually listening to an interview with Dr. Mayat on her channel. And she was saying, I think Nur Muhammad was on there as well. And they were saying that the Black community is not really like a community. It's more like a colony because of the things that you just stated, Madam President, that we do not have a Tulsa, we do not have a hotel infrastructure that we fully control and own in a lot of places, right? And historically, when we have tried to create that has always been thwarted by the government. Now, Erica, I want to ask you, because while we're discussing the brunch, right, it's not necessarily about the brunch that is in concern. It's the fact that we always focus on symbolism and we don't really push for real change, right? Do you think that the focus on Black excellent events such as the brunch overshadows the real need to advocate for issues that directly impact Black communities such as economic justice, education reform, and healthcare?
Yes, I do. Because if you look at the guest list of all the Black excellence, these are folks that are in a different tax bracket. They don't live in the communities that we live in. While we share the same melanin, they don't have the struggle that I have every day. They don't have to worry about what's going on in their community. They don't have to worry about migrants being dropped off in the middle of the night. They don't have to worry about certain things that every regular folk got to worry about. So symbolism is that face of, oh, look, I've done 25 movies. Oh, look, I have 3 production companies. Oh, look, yes, please come to my screening. Yeah, there is a complete difference between them and us. They not like us. I mean, we can use that on so many different platforms. So I think it's really important that we start getting our voices heard for those of us that are carrying this country, because it is the middle class that gets up, the middle class Black America that gets up and goes out every day and is really carrying this nation on its back, as we always have been. And we continuously do that because you know what? We're carrying the nation, we're carrying our family, we're carrying our lineage, we're carrying the next. that's in front of us. So I think, yeah, there was a lot of that happened, and it's going to continue to happen until those of us with the smaller voices begin to speak up and speak out and start doing right with our money instead of funding those that attend up for parties that get us to spend more money.
Wow. I mean, that was just a word right there, Erica. And I want to ask you guys a question in the chat. And I'm going to ask you this question, Moya. What is Black excellence to you? Right? So everyone in the chat, what is Black excellence to you? Because I think that it's so ambiguous. I don't think we have even answering that question, I don't think we have like a clear image of what that looks like. And Moya, I remember when you were talking about the children and what they're able to see as a framework for them, right? What do you think Black excellence should be or look like in this case?
I like that. I like that a lot. And I do agree with what Eric is saying in the sense of we as a Black community, we carry America in a lot of ways on our back. I definitely believe that. And then we have to also do right with our money. But one of the things that I've noticed is, so I'm a tax professional, I do taxes. And so I see financial aspects of people. And Erica brought up something really important because I always think of Chris Rock's quote that he had. He said one time, where I live around, this is what he's saying, I live around Mary J. Blige. I live around the best of the best for Black people. But do you know who my white neighbors are? They're dentists. They're chiropractors. Like they're just the everyday type of person. So what and what he was saying is I would love for my community where we as Black people are the dentists, are the chiropractors, are just the everyday people living at this highest echelon of where I live. So I think that that's important to understand. But within that, from the place that we are at, we have to be able to understand what the Democrats are pushing forth that might not say Black agenda. When you talk about an EITC credit, the earned income credit, and they'd get $3,600, that's life-changing. We've done it already when COVID first, when Biden and Harris came in and COVID happened. So it can be done again. It's just that the Republicans didn't pass it, so they weren't able to keep it. When I say that we were able to get families $10,000, $15,000, and even higher than that because of the credit. Also, when we talk about the home buyers assistance and tax credit of up to $25,000, this is what she's proposing. These are her policies. This helps all people. And we've done it before, Madam President. We've done it in 2008 when they had $7,500 tax credits. So now we're offering more. So how do those policies not benefit our community, especially at this point in time? We just need to get in place. If we get in position, oh my God, what type of, that would be economic justice within itself if we can just get in position to take advantage of it and not just be in position to just spend it.
Well, I definitely would like to say that I believe that the things that are being proposed are not bad things at all. The challenge is these things are not specific to Black people only, which means that they're going to be Black people are going to be put in a pool of a bunch of other people fighting for all the assistance that they supposed to just get automatically. When you look at
with the PPP loans, do you know a lot of people that were fighting for them? Like, was it like, or do you know people that received it? Do you know anybody that received the PPP loans?
I don't have any personal connection to people who received the PPP loan or a person who received the PPP loan. But I also would like to highlight that when you talk about the New Deal, when you talk about Jim Crow, these were specific laws in place to progress people forward. So when you talk about also too, let's just talk about something like a Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo, hey, we're here for everybody. If you're a good person, you got good credit, come and apply with us. Well, it was proven through research, documentation, and lawsuits that they have the tendency to deny Black loan applicants. They have the tendency, not only that, a Black person who has a higher credit score and who makes more money than a white family was getting denials. So they have lawsuits behind that. And I'm not against what you're saying because I do agree and I do I would like to say I'm a college educated woman. I understand upper echelon and achieved Black people, but I also come from people like my grandparents didn't have a whole lot of education, but they were much, much, much greater with their financial literacy than maybe some. There's a great distinction that's happening here, which means is that if a young person has access, can they achieve with the access? Well, we cannot remove that we have to deal with this in a system that has stamped Black people so many different things. So it's like I want to believe that all of these things will benefit us in a great way. And I say us meaning anybody, all Black people who want this beneficiary, to benefit from this. But my concern is, has America proven that she can operate in a fair spectrum when it comes to Black people? And the answer has been historically no.
I agree with that, Madam President. And I always was like, why can't we just get something that's specific to us? Why they can't put this is for Black people, right? They signed the anti-Asian hate bill and all these other things that are saying this is carve aside. This is reparations for Japanese people. This is this for this, but we can't specifically get to anything. Erica, I want to pivot to you because I know you've been jumping out your chair going, feel like you're about to rapture up after listening to everything. What are your thoughts?
Again, thank you, Madam President. I've been looking for you, sis. I don't know where you've been, but I like the way you think. But I agree with what she said 100%. There are never any guarantees about how we are going to benefit from anything that's put in place. It seems as if the more we fight, the more we march, the more we protest, the more we do this, the more we do that, and we get things implemented for us. It is always utilized for everybody else. It is always utilized to benefit another group of people. So I have lost faith in what people have to say about, we're going to get these policies, we're going to get this, and, $25,000 for homes and $50,000 for this and $50,000 for that. We've seen in California that we have migrants that are getting all this money, $150,000 or up to $150,000 to get to buy their first home. Is that fair for those of us that have been living here all this time and we can't get that? But you got to show up with your tax returns. You have to show up with your bank statements. We have to see how much money you make a year. We have to make sure that come on, we have to run your credit. But somebody just, got here and we're going to help them out. But I built this. My blood stain is here. My great grandmother's blood watered the lawns of this country. But you got to run my credit. Get the hell out of here. No, this is ridiculous. And it's got to stop. And the more we start trying to sit at tables and build our own tables, that is when we will be taken seriously.
Listen, I felt my blood cells pumping just now after that, Erica. But if you are just joining us, welcome to Fly Nubian Money, where we help to master your mindset and maximize your income. Today, we are discussing the topic of symbolism without substance, okay? Are we just good enough to show up at brunch? Where are the policies? Where are the things that are going to move the Black agenda forward? Joining me today are our queens, Madam President Moya and Erica. Be sure, because we want you to be engaged and never miss out when we are live, honey. Make sure you text the word queens, that is QUEENS, to 87948 so you do not miss a thing. And also be sure to listen to us on the go by listening to us on Spotify. Now, I want to talk about the topic of our policies and how we are not really pushing a clear agenda. When we go into that, we have a video highlighting the Black or the lack of an agenda or policies directed towards us. And I wanted us to take a look at that right now.
Obama approach, you could argue the Obama-Biden approach, has been to act on policy without labeling it as being for the benefit of these groups, right? Their approach has been, we're going to work on policy and we're going to present this policy as beneficial to the country at large. And, read between the lines. If you cancel student debt, who has the most student debt? It's certain groups. If you make healthcare more widely available through the Affordable Care Act, read between the lines. Who does it benefit? Is it really that the messaging needs to be, this is for you? Or are there other policies that the Democrats aren't pursuing that African Americans identify and say, you're failing us?
All of the above. And I would think back to the 2020 Democratic primaries, where there was a real conversation, an actual real conversation between the candidates, the front-runner candidates, both in the 2020 and 2016 presidential primaries, about what would it look like to have policies that are aimed specifically at African American communities. And, in 2020, President Biden said, I will appoint a Black woman to the Supreme Court. And he did it. And it was one of the most powerful things that he could do, even though the naming of a Black woman and saying, I want to put a Black woman on the Supreme Court is something that may have alienated, ostensibly racist people that maybe the Democrats needed to win. And yet it paid off political dividends. It paid off heavily. And it was rewarding, essentially, the most loyal constituency of his base.
What else should...
Well, with that, we can clearly see in the video that, there was a loyal constituency to the base. So with the Democratic Party, I think there's a growing sentiment that within the Black community that we're fed up, we're tired, we feel disenfranchised. We feel like we have been so loyal for so long without seeing certain things directed specifically towards us. Maybe there are policies, like you said, Moya, that do benefit us, right? But things that are specifically tailored to us outside of just appointing people in positions. Do you think we are at risk, the Democratic Party is at risk of losing the Black vote? Madam President, I'll start with you. Oh, you're on mute, darling.
Is the Democratic Party at risk of losing the Black vote? I think there is a huge political shift. I think that my grandparents' generation, they're diehard Democrats. In fact, my grandfather, when Bernie Sanders was running, my grandfather said he old. And I looked at him and said, you old too. Thinking that he would like Bernie Sanders because he was old. So when it comes to politics, you really are able to see that the American people are very Americanized. How a candidate looks, how they speak, how thin they are, how they wear their hair, their vernacular. It all matters. It's not even about sometimes policy. Will you do the right thing? Will you advocate for the people that are going to vote for you? That don't even matter as much. And the American people knows that. Or some of them. And I think we're waking up as a collective. I don't know if they are completely losing the Black vote, but I know that they are losing a large number of Black people. They are not able to handle African American people or Black folks like they used to. Bill Clinton, since Bill Clinton, they called him charismatic. They called him cool. They called him so many things, and he has some of the worst policies affecting Black people even today. So I think that Black folks are getting tired of having a commitment to a party that is not coming down back to them fast enough. And I do like the point that she made on the video. She says Biden said that he would appoint a Black woman to, justice of the U.S. But guess what? One ain't enough. Their policy trickles down to many of their great-grandchildren. And that's what we want, the same. That's what we want. We want that same footing. So I think they're losing a lot of people, but they haven't lost everybody. That's for sure.
All right. So Moya, right? I want to ask you the same question, but do you think that they're losing the Black vote, even though we have seen Black women come out in groves to support Kamala, rally her campaign, and kickstart her campaign funding?
I think we're losing the messaging for the Black vote, meaning that when we focus so much on one side and what they're not doing, like, so when Sonia Massey, when she died and they asked President Trump about the death, one, he made it seem like he didn't know a whole lot. But after that, he said, I want police to have immunity. So when we hear that, what does that ring true to us? So Biden said, one, I want to point out two things. When she asked that question in terms of agenda, a professor from Johns Hopkins, her and herself didn't have a solid response. So if that lets you know that we have a long way to go when it comes to what agenda we need, if someone who studies this all day long isn't able to give us a solid response. The second thing is, when we look at justices, one, we have the Supreme Court, and I like what Madam President said, one isn't enough. But guess what? How many of us know that over 100 judges are they get on the bench two ways. They're either appointed or they're voted. A small sector is voted. Most of them are appointed. And when they're appointed, that means someone else has to choose them. And that's how we as Black people are affected the most. That's our last stop, that if everything else goes wrong, we have a judicial system that in theory is supposed to advocate for us. But if all those judges represent the mindset of one group, and it's the only group that we have opposing the Democrats now is this MAGA group. It's not even regular Republicans. They are outward racist, like on the outside. They've said it. They didn't keep it in like the other Republicans do. Now they've outwardly said it, that they're racist. So these are the people that are appointing the justices, and there's over 100 that their seats are going to be up. And we elect him, someone that says he wants police to have immunity. Where does that leave us? Because I know one of my policy agenda points is my Black sons come home every night. I need that. So I need justices that I know have a mindset to vote. And when I say vote, I mean carry out the law in accordance with how that affects us and not their racist tendencies. So I don't believe that we don't have a strong, if it's still MAGA that's in charge, no. The only thing we're fighting against is people not wanting to get off their couch to go vote. But it's serious. This election's serious.
Wow, Moya, you said a word just now, and something to really think about, because those are things that have been said by the other party. And I know we have been kind of focusing on one party in this conversation, but we do have to consider all sides of everything, especially as a Black community. Now, I want to talk about when it comes to Black men in the midst of all of this, because it has been a growing trend, or what I've been seeing, Black men have been upset with Kamala as a choice and feel disenfranchised, right? And that they have not been, they seem to be more of the group that feels like they're not going to be supportive of Kamala because, she has not been really giving tangibles and focusing on the men in that instance. And I want to also notice that with the women, especially the Black women, the AKAs, the Deltas, the sororities, everyone coming out for Kamala, are we leaving men out of the conversation? Is the Black community mostly about the women?
Yes, it is. It really is, because I'm going to be honest with you. The Black community is on the backs of Black women. It has been for years. We can trace it back if we're going to go back and look at how long Big Mama, we've had the Big Mamas and all the aunties that have taken care of the families. The Black community is on the back of Black women. And guess what? Black men have the luxury of being able to tiptoe in and out of communities. They can go to the Latin community and have some babies there. They can go over to the Caucasian community and have some babies there. Black men have the luxury of being where they want to be without having to own up and take care of anything. Yes, damn it, I said it, sue me. No, don't do that. But anyway, Moya, I need you to take care of my taxes for me. No, but I'm serious. Black men have the luxury of tiptoeing across the boundaries of community lines. And it's okay. And we don't stop them. We just leave the porch light on and he'll be home and we won't say anything. But meanwhile, Black women have been carrying communities on their backs for years, dating back to slavery. It is disgusting. And no, I am not a Kamala Harris fan. like I said before in other broadcasts, I commend her on her being able to run. I commend her because that is a feat for anyone. That is a feat, and she has done well thus far. I am not voting for her because I am a Republican. However, for any man, any Black man to say he's not supporting a Black woman, it disturbs me because the first woman that you ever saw, Black man, was the woman that delivered you and carried you, and she was Black. So how dare Black men sit here and say that they have no support for a Black woman? I'm not going to get into the fact that Kamala's not Black. That's a whole nother production, and we'll deal with that another time. However, if let's say she is Black for the day, for the sake of this conversation, she's Black right now for the next 35 minutes. That is not a reason to say we're not going to support her. We're not supporting Black women, because guess what? Black men have not been supporting Black women for thousands of years. And guess what? They're doing what they've continuously been doing over that thousands of years, not supporting Black women, starting with their mamas, their sisters, and then their daughters. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, this is fine words, honey. Okay, Madam President, I want to pivot to you. I know you got something to say.
Erica, you my sister, and I love you. But I have got to tell you that we cannot vilify Black men. We can't vilify Black men. We can't.
But they vilify us.
Wait, well, hold on. Let me tell you something. Then this is where this is where we have to understand. Farrakhan said this one time, and I will never forget it. And you don't have to be Muslim. You don't have to be just anything to understand that he said that God is a man and woman. Nurturer like a woman. God is a nurturer like a woman and stern like a father. That means that we together make this world work. Together we make this world work. We cannot have this war. This is one of the reasons that our children are so just available to the supremacy, because we have a war within ourselves that's going on. And we can't have it for progression. We can't have the war. So I don't want us to have like, well, I'm not for Black men, and Black men are the reason that the political figures, and this is the thing about the supremacy, and that is the supremacy will have you blaming the wrong people for what they have done. So you'll be looking around talking about, I don't like Black men for what they have done to me, while showing up every day to work for white men, giving them your best ideas, giving the white men your best self, even your best smile, even your best attitude. But when your husband, your kids, your boyfriend, your uncle come through, you ain't even got an ounce of energy for them. So you cannot let this world tear you down for your Black brothers and sisters. And let me tell you how easy it is with the programming, the imaging, and not to mention, I am a product of a father who was killed at the age of 28. So that means that I was fatherless majority of my life. But there were other men that came into my life, my grandfather, my uncle. So it's easy to get this clouded attitude toward Black men. And it's easy for Black men to get this clouded attitude toward Black women. But the problem is it ain't gonna work, because we are stronger together. So we can't be at odds with one another. And this is the issue that I have as well. How can you possibly amp up your daughter while also forgetting about your son? It's not possible. It's possible when you present both of them equally. Here's my son, here's my daughter. They come as one. You can't have my daughter and not take my son. This is one of the reasons that the Williams sisters, Serena Williams and her sister, Venus, regardless of who they all decide to marry and date, but their father was there to provide advocacy for them. Their father was there to say, hey, you can't take this one without taking this one. That's why you have both of them, one of the greatest, the tennis players in the world, both of them, not just one. So one of the things I don't want us to do is to hop on this war with one another. And it's easy. You know why they want us to hate one another? So they can do whatever they want to us without any defense. What army can you build when you say, I don't like the men? How men will eat if the women say, I won't feed the men? It's not going to work. We cannot be at odds and we cannot be at war with one another. That's just not.
Sis, I have one question for you. I have one question. How is it that I cook and prepare a meal, but he sits up and decides to go sit at another table? That's the only point that I'm trying to make.
I'm not here to say that your how you feel is invalid.
No, it's not. It's not about what I'm feeling. It's about what we see. This is what we're looking at.
Well,
it's not my emotions. It's what we're seeing.
When I think about, they do a thing where they say, "Oh, these black men, they all love white women," and then when I look around, I go outside, I see nothing but black men and black women together. This is the thing, combating what people are saying in the imagery. And there was a time too, if I take my experience with two women and combine it to the behavior of all women, am I doing myself a disservice? Am I doing women a disservice? We cannot have these emotions toward one or two or three and compile so many. So Kamala Harris, she has to, I don't want to say she has to cater, but how black men feel, they are valid. They have a right to have feelings towards her. And she has a right to address them and say, hey, you are my focus too. So I feel like another thing as women, we have to understand and realize is that we don't supposed to have the mind of men. So many times women get offended because of how a man do something. You don't supposed to see and hear and feel everything that a man feels, and everything that his vision, his way is not the way of a woman. And as a woman, we have to understand that, oh, I don't see it that way. I don't agree. I don't feel like that. And then that's understood because we are two different species. Let me tell you something. It is becoming easier for black women to see black men turn into women than it is for black women to look at a man and say, okay, you're strong, you're dominant. Okay, I surrender.
Listen, that was, I know the men are loving you in the chat right now, Madam President, for sure. And it is very unfortunate that we have such infighting, because it takes us away from the issues that we really should be fighting, which is our growing dissatisfaction of not getting our needs met in this country. Moya, I want to ask you, could why can't I pronounce today? Could the dissatisfaction push more Black people to run for office for themselves or create new political movements?
I definitely like the idea of more Black people running for office, for sure. I definitely agree in the political system. I think it's also something that we have to take a step back from and to see, as Kamala said when she was at the NABJ, one of the reporters asked her about the Black men question. And she said, I have to earn their vote like I have to earn everyone else's vote. And so when we look at what they've done in terms of one of her biggest moves and pushes that she wants to do is for federal workers to go ahead and she may not have that requirement of a college degree. Now, when I work on federal workers taxes, they're the ones that earn the most in terms of just coming straight from high school. Like when she says that she wants to do that, it's a true change in ability, especially when we talk about where our access will be. When we look at jobs in terms of jobs created, it's at one of the, in terms of where we're at now, in terms of unemployment rate, it's at one of the lowest that it has been in history for Black people. And so when our Black men have jobs, and not only any type of jobs, but well-paying jobs that make you feel good to go home to your wife and kids or your family, then it allows us to grow as a community. And so I think those things are really important to assess and to understand.
I agree. My only thing I noticed with the jobs, right? Most of these jobs that are coming into the country right now, it seems like a lot of immigrants are taking those jobs, like the highly skilled labor and then the traditional jobs. So I think a lot of Black voters feel left behind, right? I feel like a lot of Black voters feel left behind and are wondering what is our way forward when the country is not prioritizing us. And actually, there's a video that I think we have that we're going to pan to that is talking about what does the way forward look like for us, right? So while we're getting that queued up, this is Fly Nubian Money. I am Athena. I'm hosting for today with my other queens, Madame President, Moya, and Erica. If you want to make sure that you check us out live and don't miss anything, text the word Queens, that is QUEENS, to 87948. Sometimes we also will send you informational things as well. So you make sure you want to join our text community. Also, if you want to listen to us in the car or where you're doing chores, or just make sure you want to always stay tuned in to what we're doing, you can listen to us on Spotify. But exactly, you can listen to us on Spotify. Now, I think that we need to move away forward. We need to focus on the real issues. It saddens me that we are so disjointed as a community. And when I look at other groups, I have friends in different groups, and I always observe how their community operates. They don't necessarily like each other or agree with each other on everything. They also face colorism and other issues, classism and things that we face, but somehow they're able to put that aside for when these big issues come across. And I just wish that that would be the approach that in mass that we would have, because I think then we'll really be able to affect change in our community and in this country. So we're going to now go to a video that discuss our ways to look forward.
Else should the administration be doing that they're not?
Voting rights, criminal justice reform, and some kind of large economic incentive. And I don't want to take away from the ways in which the Biden administration has actually done those things through colorblind policy. They have done that. The messaging around it, though, is deeply important, particularly in the way that you are conveying to audiences who feel left behind. One of the things that the Trump administration did very well is that they spoke explicitly to their core base, the people that they needed to win. And a lot of people, I think, were taken aback by that. But actually, if you look at it on the grand scheme of things, it was an incredibly important strategy. You need people enthusiastic around these things, but you also need policy wins, very big policy wins. And so I think for many audiences, you can point and say, well, I'm being gridlocked, and all those things are true. I'm being blocked out of Congress. It's not possible to do these things. But that's not what audiences see. They see themselves being left behind.
Wow. Okay, so she said that audiences feel like they're being left behind. Erica, do you agree with that statement?
I think in some ways, yes, but I think as a community, we're always left behind. We're always looked over. I do feel that way. Yes, but it's up to us to put ourselves at the forefront without distraction, having a clear agenda of our own. And and unfortunately, we don't have that leadership of the 60s. We don't have that Brother Malcolm. We don't have that Martin Luther King. We don't have those voices that led the way, that paved the way that we could follow. They were tragically taken from us. However, I think that we've learned enough over the history of time, over what those voices represented and what those voices were able to accomplish, that if we all just stuck together as a unit, we could push through that agenda ourselves. We don't necessarily need someone to galvanize us and say, okay, let's all walk this way. Let's all make a right at the corner. Let's all go here. Let's all hold these signs together. If we had a clear understanding as to what it is we wanted to be as one, as our fellow Asians, as our fellow Latino communities, if we had that clear agenda, we would be okay. But until we get clear on what it is that we want, we will be looked over, we will be sat to the back, and we will be scanned over, and everybody else will get what is supposed to be ours, because we have lost our identity. And when you lose your identity, you lose your way.
That when you lose your identity, you lose your way. I think that is one of the most profound statements we have said today. Moya, when it comes to the Democrats, right, and you have brought some very, very solid, valid points. I always appreciate you in these political discussions. But do you think there's anything that the Democrats need to do right now if they want to stop Black voters from walking away?
I believe it's messaging. I believe it's messaging. One of the things that I always want to ask us being this full collective of Black people, is when are we going to identify our gains, our strides, the fact that we are no longer this monolithic group all stuck in the same economic socio condition, that we have evolved and we are now a dynamic group of people who have access to a whole lot. So because we are no longer in the civil rights movement where they can say, you guys are not able to come in, the area that I believe is the strongest, that if we need to fight anything, it's our legal system. That's the area that doesn't matter how much money you have, you walk in there, you and our medical and healthcare, that you can really be, like you said, railroaded and not have what you need. So I do believe that we have to understand that we're more than just who we used to be. When are we going to acknowledge that, we got Robert Smith worth $8.5 billion. Like, we got real money and wealth, So when we push this Black agenda, we're kind of like only pushing the same narrative.
I agree. I do believe, Moya, like you said, we are much further along.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I do.
So you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. We are much further along than, the times of the 60s. There was a time where, making money was challenging. And now we live in a time where you meet a young man that's 19 years old, got an online platform making, $27,000 a month, So we are shifting, economically. Now, we also have things, Moya, like the Black tax. And as a tax professional, I know you know about that. The Black taxes, when Black folks, when we make six figures and they don't feel like it because we're sharing with too many people who haven't been able to achieve. So our money isn't going as far as maybe others. But I have to remind myself that I'm upper middle class. I have to remind myself of that because I'm connected very much to how I grew up as a little girl, the lack, can I get some? And, that environment. But I typically, and this is the social, the psychological engineering that most Black folks have had to deal with. W.B. Du Bois says the double consciousness. You're climbing all these different ladders to achieve, right? So I will say that we do need to change the judicial system. It's ruining us. I mean, the fact that you could be going to a private prison to make people money is crazy. And if we keep that even if that as a focus has an effect on a lot of Black people. So if we had the candidate of the United States that says, you know what, my first 100 days, I am going in there to right a wrong of America. I think she would transform the number of supporters that she has instantaneously. Does she have the courage? Does anybody have the courage to say America has had a demographic or a group of people that we have wronged for quite some time? And as the president of the United States, I want to take an interest in the initiative in correcting that matter. She has the ability, but I know she can't speak like that. She could, she will transform you. She'll see so many people voting for her because there are people that are neutral. People who are indifferent don't want to vote for Donald Trump. People are not looking at Donald Trump like, yes, this is an intelligent man, But we are burned by this system. And then the Democrats have to take accountability and say, we got to do better. They have to have a collective conversation and say, it's time to do better. And I'm with you. My thing would be education, because once we have access to education in a different manner, our schools are ran down badly. When you poor and you go to certain schools, your access to education is so minimum. This is one of the reasons why Black genius is just constantly fleeing away from our community. Where does Black genius go? When you're a Black person who's extremely, got a photographic memory, you're a genius, where do you go? So we, in order to cultivate that and keep Black genius here, because we need architects, we need people who can build tax software if we was building our own. But if we just gonna, rah, do the electric slide, drink the liquor, and have a good time, then it was gonna be hard.
Lord, I remember Neely Fuller said that with Black people, it's always like a show, like try to outdo each other when we gather. We don't really do anything productive. This show has been very, very enlightening, and the discussion has been so great. I want to get your final thoughts, though. I'm going to start with you, Erica. Final thoughts about today. Are we just, like you said, showing up for the chicken? What can we do to progress forward? And where can the people find you?
Listen, some of us are just showing up for the chicken. And like I said, I love a good wing. I didn't say everybody, Moya. I just said some of us. And I too love a wing, especially the flat piece. However, we have got to stop. And we've got to stop and start asking questions. And the question being, well, what does this mean? What is this a distraction from? Because, music, food, and entertainment will get you distracted from what the problem is to what's going on around you. And literally, there's a whole bunch that'll be going on around you, and you're so unaware. And now, poof, oh, I could have asked this one that. Oh, I could have asked so-and-so a question. Oh, but I was too busy doing this. I was too busy with my lawn brother. I was too busy. No. It is time to go in with an agenda, just the way everybody got on that Zoom to raise adequate amount of money for her campaign or for the Democratic Party, however it was divided up. You too, when you got your invitation to the Black Excellence Party on the lawn at the White House, you too could have gotten on a Zoom with everybody that got their invite to say, hey, I have so-and-so's ear. We need to sit them down during intermission and let's have a discussion about this list of agenda for our community. My name is Erica Lewis. I'm the author of Faith in Transition. You can find me at faithintransition.com, or you can find me on all social media platforms at Miss Erica Renee.
Love that. And Moya, our political queen, darling, what are your last thoughts for the people? Where can they find you?
So one of my biggest things that I want us all to understand, and I want us to really hone in on what Madam President said. I wrote it down. It says, where does our Black geniuses go? And when we really galvanize for our family, and I feel the best way to do that is by knowing that we are good economically, and we've seen it. We've seen it in terms of the federal programs for reducing college requirements. We've seen it. But one of my biggest things, and it's just me because it could be my profession, but I definitely believe in the earned income tax credit, just because it's almost double the amount. And if we have the ability to, now we know in advance, we can plan for it, that business that you always wanted to start, not even talking about her $50,000 that she wants to offer for starting businesses, but what you can do for your family. If you wanted to move to a different neighborhood, if you wanted to get a car so you can go back and forth to work in a better form of transportation, all of that is available now when we have something we don't have to necessarily qualify for, as some people brought up during this part of the conversation. I want us to really understand what we have at play here. My name is Moya.business, and email me for my book that I wrote about tax credits. You have access at 89 pages of different forms of tax credits that you can qualify for. Email me at moya.aatclc@gmail.com. You can email me and I'll just send it out. I've sent it out to a few of you already. Let me know if you have any questions so that way I can truly help you.
Listen, okay, Moya providing solutions and things that can help you, raise your economics, honey, because that's what we need to enact change, darling. Now, Madam President, I know you came in blazing today. You was sermoning, okay? I'm surprised you have not had a church yet, honey. But let you share your final thoughts with the people. Where can they find you?
Well, first of all, I would just like to say thank you, ladies, so much for having me. I'm so happy that you all just welcomed me here today. I really appreciate it. Maya and Erica, it was such a pleasure connecting with you all. I'm going to get your books. I'm going to stay in contact with you. Just number one. Number two, I think one of the things that people are minimizing is at home. Before you vote for anyone, you are the president of your household, okay? Before you do anything, you are the CEO of your house. You are the CEO of your children. So that's just number one. Your household business is important. America can go up or down, but at home, you got to keep that intact. And how we keep that intact is not just togetherness, because that's essential, but we have to listen. We have so many, even myself when I was growing up, my parents say, hey, Chanel, don't do this. And I go and do what I want to do. And then it's like, oh, snap, I shouldn't have done that. So listening saves us time and money. And togetherness also helps the advocacy for what we want to be accomplished. And if we're going to give away our vote, let's make it worth our while. Come together. And another thing we need to do as we come together is understand that everybody's needs may not be met. So that means that there may be voting for children to have certain access, certain credits that for people with children. Well, guess what? I don't have children, but it's very intelligent and godly of me to want to ensure that children are well taken care of. So I don't have to have children to be behind something that benefits children. That's just number one. And we need to keep our thinking active like that. I'm Madam President with a Z, and I am 100% politically incorrect. You can find me all through the internet with one Madam President.
Listen, such a treat having you here today. Now, my final thoughts, I'm going to copy from one of our lovely viewers, Big Mac. Hey, Big Mac. And his comment was, LOL, I love the chicken too, but we got to ask for the full meal. Listen, that is exactly what we need to do as Black American people in this country, okay? I'm tired of seeing us showing up for the show, eating fried chicken at the brunch, when we need to really get down to business. We really need to economically empower ourselves so that we can pay the check, okay? We got to cut the check to get the things done. That's what other groups have been great at doing, and that is where we fail. And that is part of the reasons why we haven't been able to put the foot on these people's necks to get the change that we deserve. My name is Athena Garner. I was your host today. I'm a CPA and founder of We Wealth Women, where I teach women to live their best goddess life and to confidently manage their finances. I am at We Wealth Women on all social media platforms, and you can listen to my podcast at We Wealth Women Podcast. Now, closing thoughts. Celebrating Black excellence is important, but let's not forget that we also need to demand real progress for our communities. Black women are leading the charge in politics, but are we asking for enough? I don't think so. It's time to take a look at how we can leverage these moments to create tangible change and not just accept the symbolism of being seen, okay? I'm tired of being seen. I want to be cared for. And that is the attitude that we must have. Thank you guys for joining us today. This is Fly Nubian Money. We are here Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, honey. If you want to listen to us on the go, you can also do that by listening to us on Spotify. But before you go, make sure you text the word Queens, that is QUEENS, to 87948 so you do not miss a thing. Also, I want to shout out, next month is All Black National Convention, and all us queens today will be there at the show, honey. So if you want to meet us in person, okay, you want to see the fabulosity in person, make sure you go to the allblacknationalconvention.com and get your tickets, okay, because it is sure to be spicy this year. I'll be teaching a session on how to leverage AI to build a thriving Black business, which is we all need, honey, to manifest the dollars into our hands. Also, tonight, we will have a special After Dark episode. Me and Erica will be talking about some spicy topics that you do not want to miss. That will be 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, specifically on the Fly Nubian Money channel. So make sure you do not miss it tonight. I love you guys. I love my Black family, and we will see you in the next one.